The Vanishing Man of Route 666, a paranormal encounter that defies logic. Some roads lead home, some lead nowhere, and some lead straight into the unknown. Tonight, we bring you the chilling case of the Vanishing Man of Route 666, a paranormal encounter so terrifying even seasoned truckers refuse to speak of it. Stay until the end, but be warned. The story may make you think twice before driving alone at night. A road with a dark history. Route 666, often called the Devil's Highway, runs through the desolate stretches of New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. For decades, it has been infamous for its high number of accidents, unexplained disappearances, and ghostly encounters. Some claim to have seen shadow figures running alongside their cars, matching their speed no matter how fast they go. Others report a phantom truck barreling down the road at night, its high beams blinding before it vanishes into thin air. But among all the stories, one encounter stands above the rest. The Vanishing Man, a figure so real, so solid, that those who meet him are left questioning their own sanity. A lonely drive through nowhere? It was the fall of 2003 when Dan Jacobs, a long-haul trucker, was making his way through New Mexico. It was late, past midnight, when he found himself driving along a dark, empty stretch of Route 66. Within the span of 8 minutes he had driven 66. The highway was pitch black, the only light coming from his headlights. The radio crackled with static. His eyes burned with exhaustion, but he pressed on. Then he saw a man walking along the side of the road, his figure barely visible against the darkness. Dan's first instinct was concern. Who walks alone in the middle of nowhere at this hour? As he got closer, he could make out the man's features. He was tall, thin, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, the kind from the 1950s. His hair was neatly combed, and his pale skin almost seemed to glow in the dark. Dan slowed his truck, rolling down the window. "You alright, buddy? You need a ride?" The man turned his head slowly, almost too slowly. And that's when Dan saw his eyes. They were completely black. No whites, no pupils. Just deep, endless voids. Dan's chest tightened. The man smiled, but his lips didn't move, like they should have. And then, in a voice that sounded too smooth, too perfect, he said, "You should keep driving." Dan's stomach twisted. He slammed his foot on the gas, speeding past the man. As he glanced in his side mirror, the man was now standing in the middle of the road. Dan's blood ran cold. That was impossible. No one could have moved that fast. The thing in the passenger seat. Dan kept his eyes on the road, his hands gripping the wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. The air inside his cab felt heavy, almost suffocating. His heart pounded as the miles stretched on, the eerie silence pressing against his ears. The smell hit him, rotten and sour, like decay. His fingers trembled as he glanced at the passenger seat, and there he was, the man sitting beside him, smiling, his black eyes locked onto Dan's, his hands folded neatly in his lap. Dan's scream caught in his throat. The truck lurched as he fought to keep control of the wheel. "Get out!" Dan shouted, his voice breaking. The man simply tilted his head. Then, in that same too smooth, too perfect voice, he whispered, "Ugh, I told you to keep driving." Dan slammed on the brakes. The truck skidded, tires screeching. When he turned to look, the seat was empty, but the smell still lingered. The shadow in the rearview mirror. Dan didn't stop. He didn't look back. He drove until the sun came up, until the weight in his chest finally lifted. When he reached the next truck stop, he stumbled inside, shaking. An old man behind the counter took one look at him and frowned. "You saw him, didn't you?" the man asked. Dan's mouth was dry. The old man sighed, rubbing his hands on a grease-stained towel. "The Vanishing Man, he's been out there for decades." Dan swallowed hard. "It's impossible. The old man gave him a knowing look. Lots of things on that road are impossible, son. Dan didn't respond. He just nodded, grabbed his coffee, and walked back to his truck. He was done asking questions, because some things aren't meant to be understood. The chilling warnings that remain. Route 666 still exists, though much of it has been renumbered and renamed over the years. Some say it was to escape the curse, but truckers, travelers, and locals still whisper of phantom figures walking along the highway. And if you're ever driving down an empty road late at night and see a man in a suit with black eyes standing by the side of the highway, do not stop. Do not slow down. And whatever you do, keep driving. Some roads lead home, some lead nowhere, and some lead straight into the unknown. What do you think happened to Dan? Let us know in the comments, and if you want more chilling paranormal stories, be sure to like, subscribe, and join us next time. If you dare.